Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Thank you, Chair. Minister, the Scrutiny of Bills Committee requested a justification for why this bill includes a standing appropriation rather than being included in the annual appropriation bill, which would give the Senate oversight. Please explain why a standing appropriation is required.
Minister.
Thanks very much, Chair, and thanks, Senator Roberts, for the question. A special appropriation is more suitable for meeting possible liabilities than annual appropriations. While the likelihood of the Commonwealth will need to make a payment is very low, we may be urgently required at any time to meet liabilities arising under a guarantee, which may fall outside the usual budget cycle, meaning the annual appropriation process may not be available within the timeframe any liability falls due. Without a special appropriation, it is possible Parliament would be recalled to pass an urgent appropriation, or the Commonwealth could risk defaulting on its liabilities. The special appropriation is not proposed to have a direct dollar limit, as this provides the Commonwealth with flexibility to ensure it achieves a significant national interest objective, securing an Australian banking presence in the Pacific over the long term. The Commonwealth would not provide an unlimited guarantee. However, there may be circumstances where the maximum amount guaranteed under the appropriation could change. This includes if the Commonwealth entered into a new agreement with another Australian bank, and the legislation limits on the types of guarantees the government can provide to guarantees only from an ADI banking business in the Pacific region. Specifically, the legislation limits the guarantee to only the ADI's Pacific operations.
Senator Roberts.
Oh, sorry, Chair. So it's an open-ended budget allocation. Minister, the guarantees being provided by this government are commercial in confidence. This means the Senate will not have oversight on what the government is agreeing to. Is that correct?
Minister.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Senator Roberts. In terms of reporting obligations, any Pacific banking guarantee, including the ANZ agreement, will contain mechanisms to ensure a bank's compliance with its obligations. This includes regular reporting on the total amount guaranteed liabilities and the compliance with bank commitments as well.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. The duration of the ANZ guarantee is 10 years, meaning this government is binding future governments. Can the federal government withdraw from a guarantee at any time in those 10 years? And if so, is there any sunset clause or time limit to the guarantees?
Minister.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Senator Roberts. It's a commercial agreement that's been entered into with the Commonwealth, but there is no sunsetting clause.
Senator Roberts.
The World Bank, I'm told, is also working on a plan to assist correspondent banking intermediaries in the Pacific. Why didn't you join that international effort, and will you use what they come up with as a way of sunsetting this arrangement?
Minister.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Senator Roberts. Any Pacific banking guarantee is expected to complement the World Bank's Strengthening Pacific Correspondent Banking Relationship, the CBR project. The government strongly supports the World Bank's work on this in terms of the work they are doing in the Pacific.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Chair. If you have strong confidence in the World Bank, why not let the World Bank do it?
Minister.
Thanks, Chair. So, Phase 1 of the World Bank project will establish a correspondent banking relationship provider of last resort, which countries can call upon should they lose their financial correspondent banking relationship in a particular currency. It is intended to be a fallback when there is no other commercially viable option.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Minister. This bill does not specify what is being guaranteed, so let me ask. Does the guarantee extend to the Australian government guaranteeing loans by Australian banks to the governments of Pacific nations?
Minister.
Senator Roberts, we've just had a small changeover. I'd be delighted if you could assist me by asking that question again. Thank you.
Nadez. Minister, this bill does not specify what is being guaranteed, so let me ask. Does the guarantee extend to the Australian government guaranteeing loans by Australian banks to the governments of Pacific nations?
Minister.
I'm just trying to ensure that I can give you some accurate information. The Commonwealth provides a limited guarantee under this legislation to ANZ in connection with banking operations in 9 markets across the Pacific and Timor-Leste. Those markets are Cook Islands, Fiji, Kiribati, Papua New Guinea, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Timor-Leste, Tonga and Vanuatu. The guarantee only covers certain eligible liabilities, and it is only triggered if certain trigger events occur and result in a loss to ANZ. The Commonwealth has only provided a guarantee for certain eligible liabilities in order to minimise the risks and potential costs of any Pacific banking guarantee to the Commonwealth, and to mitigate any potential competition or market distortion risks in Pacific financial markets and the Pacific banking sector. To preserve the non-distortionary mechanisms in the guarantee, the government will not be disclosing the specific terms of the guarantee, including the types of exposures that are covered. The government, if it assists Senator Roberts, the government, of course, was provided extensive commercial advice on the guarantee, including around the risks, and commercial risk assessments found the likelihood of a default to be very low.
Senator Roberts.
So I appreciate your statement that you'd like to give me accurate information, but you didn't answer the question. So I take it that you can't answer whether or not the Australian government is guaranteeing loans by Australian banks to the governments of Pacific nations.
I think I'll try and answer it a little bit more directly if it assists. And the reason that I answer it in the way that I do, Senator Roberts, is because the advice that is provided and the terms of the guarantee are, of course, commercial in confidence for policy reasons in particular, so that it doesn't distort banking and financial services markets in the Pacific. I don't think it would be right, and I'll get the team here behind me to correct me if I've answered this incorrectly. The question about the support that the Australian government provides to Pacific Island countries is quite different to this set of arrangements, which is about ensuring that banking services are provided and that there is trade and the free movement of goods and investment and all of the things that go with having banking services provided with the facilitation and support of the Australian government. I hope that assists. I'm not sure that it will, and if you've got further questions, I'll endeavour to answer them.
Before I give the call back to you, Senator Roberts, just a reminder that 1:30 is the hard marker. To you, Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Minister. It doesn't answer the question, but I'll come back to it later. Minister, Australian banks like the ANZ raise money to lend in the market, issuing bonds and debt securities. If the intended use of that capital is to issue government-guaranteed loans to Pacific nations, which this bill would allow, does that not give banks like the ANZ a competitive advantage in the capital market? And is there any intended oversight of the capital raising by Australian banks to make sure they are honest in their representations to the capital market?
Minister.
Well, any banking guarantee in the Pacific, including this agreement, will contain mechanisms to ensure that a bank's compliance with its obligations, which includes regular reporting on the total amount of guaranteed liabilities and compliance with bank commitments. So there are measures undertaken in order to deal with that. At present, I would argue theoretical concern. I hope that the financial markets in this area lift to the point where there's, that is consistent with the kind of development and growth, investment and trade that the Australian government is working with our Pacific partners to facilitate. That is in their interest and in our interest for that to occur. And the kind of measures that you're talking about to ensure that this guarantee has a I'll put that backwards, does not have a distortionary effect on capital markets or on financial markets. There is extensive work that sits behind this that has been directed towards achieving that outcome. ANZ has made a number of commitments to its Pacific operations in the Cook Islands, Fiji, Kiribati, Papua New Guinea, Timor-Leste, Tonga, Samoa, Solomon Islands and Vanuatu in exchange for this guarantee. That does include maintaining face-to-face banking services and enhancing the ANZ Bank services, including digital services. So that is important for people and businesses and economic growth and investment in each of those states. Supports ongoing access to correspondent banking services in the Pacific and international money transfers, including the Australian dollar, but also New Zealand dollar and US dollars. It will also maintain fee-free remittances for ANZ customers. That is important for facilitating more trade and more transactions, and will involve investing an additional $50 million to enhance the ANZ's digital banking offering in the Pacific, excluding in Papua New Guinea. Again, mobilised by some of the issues about making sure that the effect here is to support providing banking services where they are at risk. The uplift that is engaged there will impact the ANZ's retail banking operations, as I indicated, everywhere except for Papua New Guinea, where ANZ today only currently offers institutional banking services. They play an important role for the mining sector and other parts of the Papua New Guinea economy. There is, alongside this, efforts to continue to support and promote financial inclusion and literacy, and ANZ will continue to support Pacific countries in terms of their infrastructure financing, in line, of course, with the bank's credit risk policies. That is the nature of the impact of the guarantee in terms of capital markets. It is not, should not be conflated, of course, with the efforts that the Australian government engages in through our EFA, the various efforts to support infrastructure development and economic development more broadly in the Pacific. This is about supporting the banking infrastructure, maybe I shouldn't say infrastructure because it's confusing, the banking retail network and digital services that sit alongside that throughout the Pacific states.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister. I notice you used the words in starting that answer. I hope financial markets lift. I hope to the trade. Yet in Australia we had severe breaches of the law by senior banking officials and financial institution officials, and no one went to jail. No one. You also said you'd like to maintain face-to-face banking services in the Pacific Islands, yet we can't get that here in Australia. Minister, is this bill just putting more money in the pockets of the Big Four banks by lowering their borrowing costs relative to other banks?
Minister.
The short answer to that question, Senator Roberts, is no. It does not achieve that in that objective in any practical way. It's not one of the principles that's engaged here. Australia does have a very well-regulated banking sector, and that is a national asset for Australia. That is important for our capacity to deliver investment and growth and financial transactions and security for borrowers and lenders and projects. That's when, in times of financial stress, our well-regulated banking sector is a fundamental part of Australia's economic resilience in what is a pretty challenging world that we live in. That is not related to what is being provided for here. There of course will always be, as you've alluded to, in any system, bad actors, bad things happening, malfeasance, errors, omissions, whatever. No argument with that. That is what the regulatory sector is designed to deal with. This situation is about extending banking services that might not otherwise be extended to a part of the world that needs banking services, and it is in Australia's interest for those to be provided. And this ensures, through arrangements supported by this legislation, but also by the kind of commercial and non-distortionary measures, that it's provided in a way which, to which there is no disadvantage to the Australian. When I say banking sector, what I mean is the kind of services that customers and businesses would need and expect from the Australian banking sector. The ANZ, quite the contrary to the final suggestion, I think, in your question, this is not a matter of the government paying an amount to the ANZ. In fact, it's quite the reverse. The ANZ pays an annual fee in respect of the guarantee, and the Department of Finance and the Commonwealth's commercial advisor have provided advice on the annual fee. That fee amount, of course, for some of the reasons that in some of your previous questions that you've alluded to, in order to ensure that it doesn't have a distortionary effect, that fee is, of course, commercial in confidence and cannot be disclosed publicly. The guarantee isn't a subsidy, it's not a bailout, and the government will not be providing any direct funding to Australian banks for their Pacific operations.
Senator Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister. So that sounds like a protection fee. Let's get this straight. Banks have no risk. They have a guarantee if they have any losses. So banks cannot lose. When will regional Australians get... Well, banks cannot lose, so it sounds like a protection fee. Minister, who drafted your bill for you? The banks?
Certainly not.
Minister.
Sorry.
That's all right. There's about a minute to go.
Well, that is certainly not the case. This bill is drafted, this arrangement is struck in order to support regional communities in Australia and Pacific nations accessing banking services. That is in Australia's national interest. That is fundamentally what is engaged here. For Pacific nations, remaining connected to global finance is one of their highest priorities because it supports their own economic development and their economic resilience. Investment in capability, investment in new businesses, microfinance for small businesses, making sure that project finance can be accessed for the kind of mining, development, manufacturing, other projects that deliver good jobs, stable investment, national economic growth, regional interdependence and economic resilience in the region. That is in Australia's national interest. Those are the questions that are being engaged here. And in terms of regional Australia, this government has secured commitments from the banks that previous governments have failed to secure. A moratorium on regional bank closures from the 4 major banks, as well as an agreement to increase their commitment to and their investment in Bank Post. I grew up in a little country town. I know how important those services are. And I know you would not be so mischievous as to suggest that there is a relationship between the services provided to regional Australians through their banks and the government's determination to protect that.
I hate to have to interrupt you, but it's 1:30 and the committee will report to the Senate.